What if the reason your child's behavior keeps escalating isn't because you're being too soft or not consistent enough, but because you're responding to the wrong thing in the moment? Today, we're unpacking the difference between a tantrum and a meltdown and why getting that distinction wrong keeps so many parents stuck.
Are you overwhelmed by constant meltdowns, defiance, or challenging behaviors? You longing for peace in your home? You're in the right spot. I'm Jamie, mom of 7, counselor, parent coach, and wrangler of big emotions. I've learned how to calm the chaos and build connection, even when things feel like they're falling apart. If you're looking to connect with your child, find effective parenting tools that honor your family values, and understand your child's unique wiring, you found it here. So pour that coffee, find a quiet spot if you have one of those in your house, and let's get started.
All right, let's talk about a moment most parents know all too well. Your child loses it. Big emotions, loud reactions, maybe tears, yelling, or falling apart over something that feels small to you. And almost instantly, a thought kicks in. He's just giving me a hard time, or he's trying to control this. Maybe she's manipulating this situation. Or this is a tantrum and I can't let her get away with it. So you do what any responsible parent would do. You shift into control mode. You hold the line. You make the boundary clear. You explain. You lecture. You raise your voice just a little. You warn. You threaten consequences. Maybe you bargain. Or you double down. And instead of things getting better, they get worse. Emotions escalate. Your child looks more out of control, not less. You feel yourself getting triggered, and suddenly what started as a simple moment has turned into a full-blown meltdown for everyone involved. If you've ever walked away from one of those moments thinking, why did that blow up so fast? Or nothing I try ever works with this child. Well, today's episode is for you. Because one of the most common reasons parents get stuck in this cycle has nothing to do with bad parenting, weak boundaries, or even a lack of consistency. It comes down to how we interpret what's happening in the moment. There's a powerful difference between a tantrum and a meltdown. And when we get that difference wrong, it quietly changes everything we do next. Here's the reframe that I want you to hold on to as we go forward. You see, sometimes we have a frame for how something's going to work, and the way we frame that situation doesn't work for us. So what we need to do is reframe that. And in this situation, I want you to think about this. Your child isn't giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. That doesn't mean boundaries don't matter, and it doesn't mean that behavior gets a free pass. It means that what you're seeing is communication, not necessarily a power struggle. Sometimes children use big emotions to communicate frustration because they don't yet have the words to do it. And sometimes their big emotions simply hijack their brain entirely, and those emotions start communicating for them because they've lost the ability to regulate in that moment. Those two situations can actually look very similar on the outside, but they require very different responses. Let's pause here for a minute because this is where a lot of good parents get tripped up. We're often told that good parenting means being consistent. And in our logical, systematic parenting brains, consistency sounds like this. When this happens, this is the result. A plus B equals C. If my child does this, then I respond this way every single time. And for many kids, that kind of predictability might help. and it might work. But when you're parenting a uniquely wired child, things don't always follow a neat, logical sequence because the situation changes, the circumstances change, their stress level changes, and this is a big one, their body budget or what their nervous system can tolerate or handle in that moment changes by the day, sometimes by the hour, and when they're really experiencing that sensory overwhelm, even by the minute. So here's the important shift I want you to hear. Consistency does not mean doing the same thing every time. Consistency means being steady in how you discern what's happening and steady in how you respond to your child's needs in that moment. It means you're consistent in staying curious instead of reactive. You're consistent in reading behavior as communication. You're consistent in responding based on what your child is capable of in that moment. Not what they were capable of yesterday, not what their siblings can do, not what makes sense on paper, but what this child can handle in this moment. And that's not being permissive, that's being responsive. And this is why labeling matters so much. So let's slow this down and put language to it, because sometimes clarity helps us respond wisely. We often use the words tantrum and meltdown interchangeably. And the truth is, they can often look the same on the outside. But what's happening on the inside is very different. A tantrum is an emotional response a child uses to express frustration and to try to influence what happens next. Your child is upset. They don't like your answer. They want something to change. And while the emotions might be big, their brain is still online enough to shift gears with a little help and support. They can pause. They can try words. They can practice flexibility or problem solving, even if it takes a little bit of help or coaching to do that. A meltdown, on the other hand, is an emotional response that happens when a child loses that emotional control due to overwhelm or overload. In that moment, their nervous system is flooded. Their emotions are loud and big, and their ability to regulate has gone offline. They're not necessarily trying to change the outcome. They're trying to survive the moment. And here's the part that makes this so tricky. Both tantrums and meltdowns can look the same on the outside. They can feel the same on the outside. And oftentimes they can sound the same on the outside. Tears, yelling, collapsing, refusing to move or to do what it is that you've asked of them. From the outside, a tantrum and a meltdown can look identical, which is exactly why so many thoughtful, attentive parents second guess themselves. You're not missing something obvious. You're not failing some secret parenting test. You're trying to read what's happening inside a child while emotions are loud on the outside. And truth be known, that's really hard to do. The situation alone won't tell you what you're dealing with. The behavior by itself isn't enough information. What matters most is your child's state, their body budget, what they can tolerate or handle right then. Because when emotions hijack their nervous system, they don't come with labels, they just come out loud. And this is where parents so often get stuck. When we assume a meltdown is a tantrum, we respond with logic, control, or consequences, expecting skills our child simply doesn't have access to in that moment. And when that doesn't work, we push harder. But pushing harder doesn't bring regulation back online. It increases threat or perceived threat. And that's when escalation happens. This is not always easy to tell in the moment. The same child in the same situation can have a tantrum one day and a meltdown the next. a disagreement over a TV show, seeing what's for dinner, a change of plans. It's not the situation that tells you what you're dealing with. It's your child's state. And once the interpretation shifts, the response can shift too. And this is usually the moment when parents say something like, I understand now, but I still freeze in the moment. Or I can see the difference, but I don't always know which one I'm dealing with. Or, and when emotions are loud, everything I know seems to just disappear. If that sounds familiar, I want you to hear this clearly. Understanding your child is a powerful first step, but you were never meant to figure this out all alone. Sometimes we need someone outside the moment, someone who understands that emotional intensity, the nervous system and behaviors, and to help us slow things down, to notice those patterns, and to practice responding differently before everything escalates. And that's exactly why I created the Calm Connection Parent Coaching Program, and I'd like to share this.
You know you need to learn effective ways to handle your child's big emotions and challenging behaviors. But it feels like it's going to take so much time, money, and energy that you just don't have. Thankfully, that's not the case. The Calm Connection Parent Coaching Program will show you how to understand your child's wiring, calm the intense emotions, and manage those challenging behaviors with simple tools that actually work. Think of it as your shortcut. No more endless hours of research, expensive appointments, or sleepless nights worrying if things will ever get better. This is just what you've been waiting for, and quite possibly the answer to your prayers. Let's arm you with the best tools to help you parent your child to be all they were created to be. Join me at calmconnectionparent.com. And let's get you back to the peaceful, loving, joy-filled family life you imagined. It's easier than you think, and you don't have to do it alone.
I encourage you to visit calmconnectionparenting.org, where you can take the emotional forecast quiz and find out your next best steps. All right, let's come back to this idea for just a moment. If you take nothing else from today's episode, I want you to remember this. When behavior doesn't change, it's often not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're responding to the wrong need in that moment. And once you start asking a different question, is my child capable of regulating right now, or do they need support first? Everything can begin to shift. Just start by noticing. Pause instead of pushing, and remember your child's behavior is telling you a story. Your job isn't to silence that story, it's to understand it. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give you a quick win for the week, something simple you can actually use without overthinking it. Here it is. When emotions start rising this week, don't rush to fix, correct, or even control the behavior. Instead, I want you to pause and ask yourself one question. Is my child regulated right now, or do they need support first? That's it. You don't have to answer it perfectly. You don't have to label it correctly every time. Just asking the question slows you down. And that matters so much more than you think. Because when you pause instead of pushing, you're less likely to become the trigger. You're more likely to respond to the real need that's going on behind that behavior. If it helps, you can even pair it with this reminder. This isn't a power struggle. This is communication. Now, that won't magically eliminate meltdowns, but it will change the tone of the moment and how you choose to respond. And over time, those moments add up. So take a deep breath for just a moment. Today's episode stirred a mix of relief, clarity, or even some emotion. I want you to know that that makes sense. Parenting a child with big emotions asks a lot of us. It asks us to slow down when everything in us wants to quickly react and get things under control. It asks us to stay curious when we feel judged, and to hold space for a child who may be struggling in ways that they can't even explain. When your child's behavior feels intense or confusing, it's not a sign that you're failing. It's information. It's communication. And when you pause long enough to ask, what does my child need right now, instead of how can I stop this, you begin responding to the situation differently, with understanding and more intention. You don't have to label every moment correctly, and you don't have to get it right every time. This isn't about perfection. It's about discernment. In our next episode, we're going to talk about one of the most common things parents say in these moments that actually escalates emotions, even though it's said with love and the best of intentions. Do you think you might be doing it? Well, you'll want to tune in next week to hear. Remember, you're not doing this wrong. You're learning how to parent a child who needs something different. And that kind of parenting, the kind that's rooted in understanding and connection, matters more than you know. So keep asking those hard questions, and I'll meet you back here next time.
I hope today's episode gave you a breath of fresh air, maybe a bit of hope, too. If this encouraged you, would you please take a moment to follow and leave a quick review? It helps this much-needed message of calm and connection reach more families. And if you're looking for additional resources, be sure to visit calmconnectionparenting.org and check out the podcast tab. There you'll find a variety of free resources waiting just for you. Until next week's episode, take a deep breath, grab that fresh cup of coffee, and remember, you've got this. And on the days you don't, well, we're in it together.